Pilot time.
Welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. Today's guest is Miles of Miles Moon Bases. And today I'm hoping that we're going to get into more of his personal ET and UFO experiences. We got a lot of his personal background in part 1, so I'm considering this part 2. Welcome, Miles.
Hey, it's good to be back. I think like last time we barely scratched the surface, so I think this time we're gonna get into the good stuff.
Now, I'm gonna let my audience know that my internet service provider has been giving me fits, so that if I pop in and out, that's why. I'm also reminding folks that I do not operate from a studio. I operate from my living room, and there will be background noises. So we're doing the best we can on the budget we have.
They shouldn't care, Penny.
Thanks for your patience. So we talked last time about that you had been, for lack of a better word, abducted by, I believe it was Greys.
Is that where we left off? Yeah, we can.
Yeah, you had just started with that. So,
yeah, I got people blowing the phone up. You tell people that you're getting ready to record, and it's like they don't get it. You know, you're like, I'm getting ready to go on radio, and then they're still blowing the phone up.
well, the good news is I don't have a phone. Lou does.
Yeah, my youngest, she's my co-pilot. After a certain time, I cut it off. I tell people I'm going offline and just shut everything down completely, because people don't understand that. I keep telling people, and I'm telling family members, I'm like, the government is way ahead of technology, more ahead than you think. Phil Schneider said back in '96 that they were, was it 50 to 100 years? I believe he said 100. Mm-hmm. But that was in '96. And I keep telling people, as technology advances, so does the advancement rate of the advancement. Mm-hmm. So back in '96, we were 100, but with the technology we have today, we're probably 2 or 3.
What I remember from my own encounters out there, the technology out there is unbelievable to most people on Earth today. And the .gov, as I prefer to call them, has access to almost all of that technology if they really want to. But as Ben Rich put it, we have done it all, but pulling that tech out of the black ops would require an act of God.
Yeah, and what they did, a lot of people don't realize, I see these people chasing, the UAP stuff and ufology, and it's, a lot of people don't realize that they went Oh, well, yeah. So I kind of see why sometimes it would pre-record, because like there's so many things that happen. People got to understand that, like, if we just did lives, you'd have to put up with a whole bunch of, what's the word? Malfunctions.
I was doing live for what, 2 years, and it got to where that it was just such a struggle every time, and frankly, my health won't tolerate the stress. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing pre-records, and it's been a lot calmer. But back to the topic, we were talking about the technology out there. Now, I'm going to interrupt you for a few minutes and give a brief rundown of the technology I know of that was available in the 1960s in the Black Op that I was in. Okay? Just so people understand, when we say 100 years behind, this is what we're talking about. In the 1960s, when I was inducted into the Black Ops, we had 0-point energy modules. That translates into everything done with petroleum is obsolete. We had regen tanks where that you could be dumped into a tank and they could fix everything that was wrong with you, and they could bring you out 24 hours later at whatever age and weight they wanted you to be, and fix everything that was wrong with you genetically while they were at it. This was a capability in 1960. They had jump gates to go to Mars from at least 2 sites on Earth. One was on Long Island in New York, and the other one was on Sepulveda Boulevard in Los Angeles, and both became active in 1964. You get, depending on where Mars is in its orbit, you get there in 20 minutes or 40 minutes. There is no years to get there. We had hyperspace drives in 1964 that would take you anywhere in the galaxy. And we're not talking light years. We're talking the hyperspace drives go through wormholes where you are here and then you are there. And it's not exactly instantaneously, but it's close. Now, if you're using the wormhole system, the portal system that's already in the galaxy, you can get to other galaxies in a day. We're not talking years in space anymore. We're not talking cryogen, although we do have pretty good stasis pods, because I was put in one in the 60s, and it kept me for the whole 60 years that I served in that particular Black Op, while they had my consciousness downloaded into another body. Oh yeah, they do. They've been able to do that since the 1960s. What else do they have? You don't use electric light bulbs to have light in your place. They use a technology that uses sound waves, and the sound waves, the machinery never burns out, and it plugs into the 0-point module. There's an incredible number of things. Now, they had started what Star Trek calls replicator machines, where that you can have whatever you want just instantaneously made in a machine. They started off with, it was basically what we call a 3D printer, and they used recycled waste.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
They started with
Yeah.
that, and it tasted pretty crappy at the beginning, but at the point they are now, it's exactly like in Star Trek. You can order up clothing to fit, you can order up toys, you can order up glassware, you can order up anything you want, and it's produced instantaneously. You can watch it materialize in front of you. Things that people on Earth would consider magic, they are doing with technology in these black ops. And there are things that if they were ever released into the public, they would completely change the way our lives run, because we would not have to work anymore. Any of us, we would work because we wanted to, not because we had to. That's the way
So you would
that's the way the economy,
you do what you like.
that's the way the economy is run in all of these space colonies. Is they use the 0-point modules, they use replicator technology, everybody has everything that they actually need to live. Now, the trouble is there are still a lot of jobs out there that have to be done by humans instead of by robots. And they're actually using slave labor for those. And that's one of my biggest complaints about what's going on out there, is they're using slaves. But if you're lucky enough to be one of the colonists, a civilian, then you have your needs are met. All you have to do is do whatever it is that you want to do, whatever your personal calling is. I know people on Earth think that if you don't have to work, you're just going to sit around and be lazy, but that's really not true. It may be true for some of us, but you get bored with that after a while. Most humans want to tinker with things, need something to keep themselves busy.
I tried explaining that to the wife the other day, and I'm like, we were at like, at like Sam's Club, the Costco, the bigger stores that sell stuff in bulk. Mm-hmm. We were in there, and there was a AI forklift that was driving itself. I got video. I was going to put it in a video. I just haven't found the right thing to put it in. But I'm like, I try to explain to her and other members of my family, like family members that are older generation, they still think that you need to work a 9-to-5 manual labor, take care of your family. And I keep trying to explain to them that everything is going digital, and it's going to be to the point eventually where it's going to be more or less trade. You are going to do what you like to do. Like, we like speaking the truth and letting people know, but it's going to be like that with everything. If you're an artist, there's people that are, that work with metal. There's people like my uncle. He works with wood, and just you're a craftsman. You're going to end up doing the things that you like. Well, I hope it gets to that, but the way it's looking, these people that are running the planet, I think we're just they're sheep, and we're just here at their disposal. That's what it feels like.
If you take a look at the literature from the 20th century, there was this split in ideas where that the working class thought that the working class would always be necessary. that blue collar work was all there was, and that was all we could do. In fact, they were behind the push to stop teaching critical thinking at school. Well, you don't need that if you're going to have a job at a factory. Well, then they closed the factories. So what are the people supposed to be doing? So now they're working at processing plants, and they're finding that the robots are replacing them. The robots, and people have gone to school for decades to become doctors, and they're finding out robots are replacing them. And robots are going to be replacing the truck drivers. And so we're at a point where robots are replacing all kinds of jobs. That content creation, the creative stuff is where the future is. And if you're not doing that, then you're going to find yourself obsolete. And that's a place where every time there's been a leap forward, people have found themselves obsolete, and you have a choice between sitting there feeling sorry for yourself or finding something else to do. And this is a point in our society where if all you can do is blue collar labor, you're going to find yourself in trouble.
I feel like I feel the direction that they're going in, and this is just my personal opinion. They are creating all this virtual stuff, and I feel like they are getting ready to like energy harvest, and they're going to have everybody in their virtual bubble and stack you up like storage containers, and you don't leave the house. You're in like the I don't know if you've seen it, but what's his face just did Ready Player One, and it was one of the guys that's done all the other weird movies. I forgot what his name was. Not Steven Spielberg.
I don't watch.
Might have been.
I don't watch a lot of
Might have,
movies. I'm sure
I don't either, but this seemed like the direction that we're going in.
Well, I know the literature in the 20th century and watching the UN Agenda 21 and it shift into the 2030 and some of the other treaties that went along with it. The goal is to have cities where people live and smaller cities where people work agriculture out of, and that the rest of the space is going to be empty, that it's going to be left for environment, but that humans are not going to even be allowed there. That's what's been in a lot of the treaties. Now, it is literally going to be pack 'em and stack 'em in those cities where that people are. So if you're not contributing, you're going to find yourself in a smaller and smaller and smaller living space with fewer and fewer options. And this is the future that has been written about. And this is the future that was part of the philosophy behind the Georgia Guidestones, which were recently demolished. In fact, yesterday, as we're recording this, I'm not sure what time frame it'll be as you hear this, but
I'm gonna get a water real quick.
Okay, the Georgia Guidestones were the New World Order plan, and their plan was that the population would be shut down to 500 million people worldwide.
All right.
So what we've got going is we've got the elites are having their own agenda. And it's being put forward publicly as Agenda 21, which was replaced by Agenda 2030. And in the process of all of this, you've got groups like Davos, where Klaus Schwab talked about that we will own nothing and we will be happy. This is their plan for everyone else. And their numbers are 500 million people worldwide, are all that there will be allowed to be. That was written in stone, literally, at the Georgia Guidestones. So this is, we have had it put in our face what their plan is, and everybody thought they were kidding. They weren't.
Yeah.
And so
it's
I keep hearing about all these people who want the Germans in space to come rescue them from this. I keep hearing from people who want Pleiadians to come rescue them from this. I keep hearing from people who are channeling Greys, who think the Greys are going to come rescue them.
Greys lie. My personal experience. I'll tell you, like, after, like, I played around with the channeling thing, with the ETs. I kind of just wanted to see if I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to go ahead and say it, because at this point, I don't really think it matters. I think they're getting ready to do the fake alien invasion here soon anyway. The message that I got, everything is telepathic, and sometimes it's all the emotion. It's like a whole story wrapped up into a thought. It's not just telepathy. And people, it's hard to explain it to somebody that it hasn't happened to, because you really don't know unless it happens to you. But I'm able to do this thing where I can switch to different timelines, and we've talked a little bit about that, but
Mm-hmm.
I can also channel things, which I don't really like doing, but I wanted to see how far I could go with it. And the message I got, they said, since 9/11, really only one race of ET has been in contact with the human race from Zeta Reticula. And that was before I even knew what Zetas were. I didn't even know. I'm like, what the hell is this? And I looked it up. That was a message I got a few years ago. And then I'm like, I don't know if I believe that. But what did that detail? What they were saying? That might not have meant like it might not have meant that they were in contact with one race, but like maybe doing business with, that, like that, you know what I mean? I don't know what that exactly meant. It might not have meant like, oh, they've only been in contact with one race, but it could have been like, who knows? Maybe for one specific thing, they were in contact with them. You know what I mean? Or they were lying to me completely. I don't know.
Well, I know of the Ponti who claim that there are 5 gray species in the Zeta Reticuli system, that they're on different planets orbiting the same star. Actually, it's a binary star, and that there are 5 planets in orbit, and each of them has a different species on them. And so they present themselves as being different people, but, we have no way to verify that. So
yeah,
it's like, okay, they could be completely lying through their teeth. They could be different factions on the same planet. I mean, we have different factions in the same country here. So you really have no way of knowing. especially
I've
when they
always
start
wondered.
when they start coming in and presenting, well, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and you're going to have to pick whether you're going to live or die, depending on whether you come with us or not, you know. And I'm going to be blunt here. I've had contact with more than one race in the last year, you know. I've had contact with Ponti, who claimed to be from Zeta Reticuli. I've had contact with Draco. I've had contact with interdimensionals that look like orcs. I've had contact with the Germans in space. I've had contact with the Guardians. I have an alter who works for the Council of Five in their court. Their court is in a hyperspace bubble off Saturn. And my alter is a bailiff in their court. So, and then I hear all of these people that are just like babbling on whatever pops into their heads, and they're coming up with all of this ego. Oh yes, we got rid of the Draco. Wrong. If you got rid of the Draco, they would be dropping rocks on Earth right now. That's what they do when you get rid of them. You know,
Aren't they the ones behind the scenes in most of the political stuff that's taking place right now?
no, the folks that
A lot of people are saying that, the conspiracy theory, a lot of people are insinuating that with the reptilian shapeshifters that are the politicians in Hollywood. That's the story that keeps getting spun.
That's the story that keeps getting spun. But if you look behind the scenes at the real stuff, there was a group that's part of the NSA, and it's called the Labyrinth Group. And the man who
They're right around the corner from me. I can throw a rock and hit the building from here.
Probably. Okay. Yeah. So the Labyrinth Group is part of the NSA. And the man who used to run it was known as 15 because of his clearance level. It was the 15th level of cosmic clearance. And he wrote under the pen name of A.R. Borden. Frankly, he's not a great writer. But the information...
This all sounds familiar.
The information in his books is completely factual. And he talked about a group that most humans refer to as Anunnaki, but he called their particular species Jahami. Now, he spelled it different in his different books, but it's basically pronounced the same way. And there were a crew of 7 people who worked for him, and they were all public at one time. Michael Lee Hill is one of them. And he gives me hell because he calls them Sams. I call them Jahami. They are the Anunnaki that everybody is going nutso over because Nibiru is approaching. And there was a big project that the Labyrinth Group did to coordinate between the Jahami and humans on Earth with psychic abilities to literally move Nibiru where it would not hit Earth this time. This was a major big deal. And I know all 7 of them who were involved. 5 of them are no longer speaking to me because I was personally abducted by the Jahami royal house and they put me into something they called the truth machine, and they were peeling my altars off, recording their memories, and then destroying the altar. This was a very painful process. And the Germans in space rescued my ass. They lost the ship doing it, which was a major turning point in my testimony about the Germans. Was why were they willing to lose a ship to rescue a lieutenant?
That's what I was just wondering.
Yeah, that has been my big question. And it made me think about, okay, who were these people? Who were they really, instead of American propaganda in my head? And I had to search through my memories to see who they really were. And they're not who most people are describing them as. Now, the Jahami are who the elites are hybrid with, not the Draco. That was the whole point of the story. They are who the elites are descended from. They hybridized with humans because the nitrogen in our atmosphere was poisonous to them. So they hybridized with us so that some of their people could live here. But they found in the process, even hybridizing, that their lifespan was seriously reduced. They lost most of their abilities. And so they came to think of us as their slaves, as we were too stupid to be considered part of them anymore. Now, in the galactic court that I serve in, they are considered to own the solar system. We think we own Earth. We don't. They do. And they are they are using the elites to control us because we are the herd that they are raising to sell to the actual Draco as a food supply.
But why all the technology and all that? Why not just keep us doing simple things?
They tried
Does that get involved with like the energy? I'm curious about the energy harvesting. That seems like the route that they're going in, with getting everybody staring at their phones all the time, training kids to be on device. Like the kids don't even look up at the stars or the sky anymore. You see them outside and they're staring down their phone. And some people have indicated that they could be just sucking your energy through these devices.
I have never bought into that. I have bought into the idea that they are completely physical beings because we are supposedly descended from them and we're completely physical beings. I know they like to present themselves as gods and they like for us to worship them, but they are the folks that are shown in Sumerian and Assyrian and other Middle Eastern art as the guys with the curly beards that are braided. You know, sometimes they have wings, sometimes they don't, but they're presented as being twice as tall as we are and looking vaguely like us. The ones that
look at all the ancient structures that are like giant steps that looks like giants built them.
Yeah. And then the folks that kidnapped me, they were basically human, but big. And they had their outer skin would fluoresce in colors based on their moods. So you could tell their actual mood by what color their skin glowed. Their basic
Like
skin,
the Rock.
their skin was basically white like your refrigerator behind you. Not white like you and me, but white like that. And they would glow colors over that for their moods. Blues, greens,
Sounds
reds,
pretty.
pinks. Yeah, they were actually really pretty. And their hair, they had hair like us. And yes, it was kinky curly, more like African people, but it was white.
Wow.
So their hair was white, like their skin was white, not like white people, but white. And albino.
Like albino?
Yeah, like
I
albino.
said the same time you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them have bunny eyes, you know, the red eyes like bunnies do. But some of them, it was a metallic gold. Some of them, it was a lime green, and some of them were neon blue.
Do you think that some of the albinos here have some of their DNA or genetics?
I think that all humans on Earth have some of their genetics.
Yeah.
That
wow.
They talk about that they took an animal that was here that had compassion, and they interbred with it, not having sex, but in a laboratory. So they did a DNA splice to create us. And we are genetically compatible with them. So yes, they can have babies with us, but it usually kills the mother.
Now, what's the DNA strand? Some say that we're missing some of that strand. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we have 23 chromosomes. Okay. All of the other hominids on this planet have 24. But if you look at the chromosomes themselves, our chromosome number 2 is obviously 2 chromosomes put together. So we were genetically modified to be compatible with them.
Huh.
And to be honest, they didn't do that great of a job. A lot of us have some really serious DNA defects.
Oh, yeah.
If they had done a good job, we wouldn't have had those. So
I've always wondered.
It was like they didn't care if we were going to be healthy or not. They just wanted us compatible.
I've always wondered where, this is a touchy subject that most people won't go near, but I'll go near it. Where do all of the different races of people, are they all different from different planets that were put here? Like, you have the Indians, the Asians, and the story that they told us about different hominids, I've seen a bunch of stuff that disproves that. Like, where did all of the different races of people come from?
Okay, what I was told while I was captured was that at the time they created humans, that they were not that good at it, and that it took them 22 tries to get it right. That they wanted something strong enough and smart enough to do the work that needed to be done, but stupid enough to be happy being a slave. And that our problem was we were too smart, and that we kept rebelling. And finally,
we are known for that.
Finally, about 5,000 years ago, they got us right. And that's why that we have this constant feeling like we should be able to do more than we do, like we should be smarter than we are, like we want to handle our own affairs, but when we actually do, we just end up in trouble. And why we always have somebody whose ego gets in the way and they decide they have to be the boss. And then we have wars because two somebodies both want to be the boss and they have followers.
It seems like it's always over something stupid that could have been solved.
It's always over who's going to be the boss. They just find excuses so that people will support them. And I've been watching this. I'm 66 years old. I've been watching this warfare nonsense bullshit my whole lifetime. I mean, we might have had 10 years that we didn't have a war during my entire lifetime. And it's always over something stupid, but it comes down to who's going to be the boss, who's going to take the resources, who's going to make the money. That's what it's always about. Who's going to make the money?
Tell me if this is accurate. What I've noticed with the wars and everything, it seems like each like major country has a piece of the puzzle. Like one might have oil, one might have gold, one might have graphene, but like each major powerhouse is sitting on one of these elements that's needed for the earth. You get what I'm saying?
There is no place that is completely without resources. And the places that don't grow food usually have lots of minerals.
Yeah.
So everybody has resources. But what we've got going on is one country will come in, their corporations will come in and strip the resources of somebody else. And they leave a toxic mess. And then not only are those people without the resources to get what they need, now they're left with a mess to clean up. And their own people are dying from the mess. And that's basically the story of the last 500 years.
So you said 5,000 years ago was when we started.
5,000 years ago was when
what civilization was that?
Sumeria.
How long ago was it Atlantis?
Atlantis was 9,000 years ago.
Oh, damn.
So we are not the same people as Atlantis was. We have been messed with since then. Basically, from what I've been told while I was kidnapped, was that the people of Atlantis were almost pure Jahami. And they had a civilization with a spaceport, and they were doing all kinds of stuff everywhere. But that was when they figured out that the nitrogen in the air was poisonous. And so they started figuring out then how to create a body that would work. So
so if we filtered out the nitrogen, so we're in a sense getting poison.
3/4 of our atmosphere is poisonous to ET, not us.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, we live here. Nitrogen is a very reactive chemical. It doesn't bother us, but we breathe oxygen. Come on. Oxygen's explosive.
Yeah.
You know? We breathe.
Damn.
So we have been created to live in a explosive atmosphere. And most ETs can't live like this. They are in awe that we can. And they're some of them are kind of jealous of it, that we can live in this nitrogen oxygen atmosphere and thrive. Yeah. They're like, oh my God, they breathe oxygen. You know, about like we think about people out there who breathe methane, you know.
Well, that's why I'm assuming that's why they don't really have mouths, really, because if they're not breathing really, then you wouldn't really need a mouth. I mean, I guess some animals have things, you know, slots on the side of their neck and whatnot.
A lot of grays are actually androids.
Yeah, that's what I believe.
No, I know they are. They're building the .gov is building them in Utah. The ones that are 3 foot tall and shorter, they're all robots.
Oh yeah.
Our government's building them. So then you've got the grays that are taller, 4.5, 5 foot tall. Some of them are up to 5.5 feet tall. Those are actually people who have survived nuclear disasters. They're not robots. And those are the ones that we colloquially call grays. Now they each come from their
nail
own
on the head.
They each come from their own little planet, and most of them have reached the point where they can no longer reproduce because of the radiation damage. Now most of them were humanoid. They looked very similar to us before their nuclear wars. And what they are now is as a result of that. So
yeah, I've been trying to that's what I believed, and not too many people talk about it. They're like, oh, this thing's from that place. You know, if you really take a close look at a gray, and then you look at some people that have been affected by nuclear damage, they look very similar.
mm-hmm.
Very similar.
Well,
but my question is,
when you get them talking, they talk about that there was a nuclear war in their past. They talk about biological warfare. They talk about that these are things that they hope we avoid because they are proof of what it does to people. Now, were they exactly like us before? Probably not, but close enough that we can see what those things will do to the people. Some of them chose to live in cloned bodies. Well, there's a thing called diminishing returns, where you can only clone a cell so many times before it won't anymore. So they reach a point where they cannot live that way anymore. And then they're like, oh, shit, we can't keep doing this. So, that's why in the 90s we kept hearing about that the Zetas wanted to hybrid with us because they couldn't have babies anymore. Well, that's their fault. It's not ours. Why are we having to fix their problem?
Yeah, and they say, oh, we'll give you this and this, that, and the other. You let us, do our thing here.
Yeah,
That
you let us come in and breed with you, and our babies will be smarter than you are, and we'll take over your planet. And pretty soon you're going to only exist through the hybrids. Yeah. No, I don't think so. But yeah, this is part of what's going on. Is everybody out there has an agenda, and the folks in the CE5 program are not admitting that.
Yeah, for people over on my channel, my end here, break down exactly. Like most people know what CE5 is, but some people don't know what CE5 is.
It's contact levels. CE1 is when you look up in the sky and see a ship. CE2 is when the ship reacts with you. CE3 is when they make contact, as in they pick you up and put you on their ship. CE4 is when they take you to their planet. And CE5 is when you're sitting here and you make telepathic contact with them and they make contact back. And it's an invitation to come here. Now, because I have this alter who works in the galactic court, I know that Earth is a protectorate, which means we are a infant species. Sorry, all you guys who think you're going to ascend. We're not advanced enough to be anywhere near that. Okay. You can be all holy if you want. I have no problem with that. The problem is you're not going to turn into something else in the near future. And, you know, I'm sorry you've got your hopes up. But we are being protected by the very advanced races because they think we have potential, in spite of what the Shahami did to us. In fact, the Shahami responsible for dumbing us down have all been picked up and hauled into court for something they call violating the prime. The prime is a set of laws that regulate how advanced races interact with primitive ones. And when you come in and you mess with the DNA and you give them tech that they're not ready for and you do things like that, that's a violation. And so in the last decade, a lot of these beings that have come in and taken advantage of us have been put on trial and have been found guilty and have been executed. And I know that because I've sat through their trials. And they don't wait to execute you. You're found guilty, they execute you in court. So it's been trippy watching this. But there's going to be a lot of slow changes happening because these guys have been executed. There's going to be a lot of slow changes. They're going to look slow to us because our lifespans are so short. But from a galactic point of view, it's going to be putting us back on a solid footing to become us rather than to be constantly a slave race. Now, which race was it that you were abducted by?
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny. You read my mind. I was just thinking about that. Ever since childhood, I've always I can remember. Most people can't remember when they were a kid, but I can remember like 2-3 years old. And as far back as I can remember, I was like, who am I? What am I? And how did I get here? Where am I? And like, I couldn't tell anybody that because, you know, I was born in the 80s. So, you know, late 80s, 90s, and, you know, 2000, you couldn't say anything. Like, and then I was in a military family, not my dad, but my grandparents helped raise me, and they were in Arlington, Virginia. So, like, I don't know. I just never said anything, but I never felt, I still don't understand what I'm doing here. But since I've been talking to people like you and everybody else that's in our group, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable, you know.
Yeah.
But I'd gotten in a lot of trouble, which we spoke about last time. I'd gotten in a lot of trouble, and I wasn't into any of this stuff. I didn't have a computer. I didn't know what Facebook was, and this is 2007. And I did not use the devices. And even as a kid, in the back of my mind, I didn't use electronics. I like, it was like the switch was turned off. You could put me in front of a computer and my brain would start to hurt. I don't know. I don't know why, but looking back at it now, it was like somebody had the switch off. And then 2007, for those that didn't catch the first episode, it was 2007. We were in a rural part of Northern Virginia, and normally the trip took about 10 minutes on back roads. Each road dead ends after 15 minutes. Saw a bright orange light in the rear view mirror. I said, what the hell is that? And I had my pregnant, the mother of my oldest. This was my first child, and she was due for a scheduled C-section. It was like within a week or two. I can't really, I don't remember exactly when, but it was soon. So this light, saw the light, bright orange. I can't describe it. It wasn't a light, and it wasn't a glow. So I turned around like this to look. Boom, we're both coming to. This is where time gets tricky. People think they know what time is, and you have no idea what time is. We're coming to, and she's an atheist, country girl, tough, tough country broad, and she's got a look I'll never forget. It looked like every emotion mixed into one, and she was kind of like frozen. Her face was frozen, and she's like, "What just happened?" That's all she could manage to get out. I said, "I don't know." It wasn't a big deal to me. I said, "I don't know." I looked down at the clock. It was 3:30 a.m. Like 3:30. I don't know if it was 3 or 3:30, but we left around a little after 12. So that's 3 hours missing time. Each road stops after 15, 20 minutes. So there's no way that, you can't do it. 15, 20 minutes, the road ends. So when we came back to, the car was like still in motion. So shook it off, went home, and it was either that night, it was 3:30 a.m. It was either that night or the next night. I'm not sure. But I woke up, sweating. She was, a lot of times when you get taken in your sleep, the person next to you will be like completely unconscious. Yeah. And I've seen people that wake up on the drop of a dime. They wake up, and then when I'm having contact, I can't get them to wake up. So I woke up, but what happened, I had the vision of being on the craft. I haven't disclosed this before either. I had the vision of being on the craft after the contact. So this is where time gets really weird. And I haven't heard too many people talk about, actually, I haven't heard anybody talk about this. So like after I got taken, I was then had the vision of being on the craft. So that moment took place after, you get what I'm saying? After, you know, and I was on the craft, and everything, you know, as usual, everything's telepathic, and I wasn't into any of this. I didn't know any of what I know now. I don't know any of this.
Yeah.
I was, you know, I was getting in trouble ripping and running the streets. So when this happened, it was my awakening, man. And yeah,
That would be
I
a
was on
wake-up
the
call.
yeah, and then it still took me 7 years because I was getting into trouble, and you know, drugs and alcohol definitely get in the way, but I feel that whatever, you know, I now realize that I was put here for somebody's mission, because as far back as childhood, before I even knew what drugs were, I had drugs on my mind. Like I didn't even know what they were. I'm talking like elementary school. I didn't know what they were, but I knew that I had to get my hands on them, which is really bizarre. I know it sounds bizarre, but I've never told anybody that either, because a lot of times you bring up drugs and people, you know, start speculating. But you know, the thought was there before I even knew what they were. But knowing what I know now, maybe I was put here to study that or something. I don't know, because I've made it through that, and I'm still alive, which is a miracle in itself, because I've died multiple times, and come back 2 hours later on the ground, and I'm like, I should be dead right now. And that's happened, you know, at least 7 times. But the craft, I was on the craft, and I didn't know anything at the time. Now I probably would have went with them, but at the time I freaked out, and I got hysterical, which, you know, I've always had emotional problems. I went to, you know, to the ED and LD school, because I was for ED and LD is learning disability and emotionally disturbed. And honestly, I think a lot of those kids I was in school with, we spoke about last time, there was in middle school and elementary school, these kids were like adults in kid bodies. The way they acted, the way they thought, the way they spoke, very smart, intellectual, like smart, you know, like, you know. And now that I know all the stuff I know now, they weren't regular kids, you know. And this is in Virginia, 25 minutes outside DC. Most people, I'd say 4 kids out of 10, their parents worked in DC, and they had no clue what their parents were doing, and they came home weird hours. And so back to the craft, I was screaming, "You got to take me back! You got to take me back! I'm having my first kid." That was the only thing I was concerned about, and I didn't know anything about ETs or UFOs at the time. But it's funny that I was talking to them, you know, not knowing anything at the time. But now that I'm thinking about it, as I'm saying it, I was talking to them like like
you knew them.
Yeah. Why? I mean, you're getting taken.
That's how it's sounding, is like you knew them. Now,
yeah.
is that a possibility?
I never even thought about that until I heard myself speaking, you know, because most people, you get taken by ETs and you've never seen anything. I think like the movie ET, the show Stargate and X-Files. I mean, that was it, you know, back in the 90s. But most people, you get taken, you're not gonna, I don't know, I would think that a normal person's reaction would probably be different, or they just black out altogether. So I was screaming at them, and they don't like it when I flip out. It was like, you know, when I flip out, like I really flip out, like you know, scary flip out, you know. And I said, "You gotta take me back. I'm having my first kid. You gotta take me back." And I was I had somebody do a reading. They found me in a contactee group and just started telling me stuff. They messaged me and they're like, I got to tell you this. And they started describing to me what happened on the craft. And I had never even told anybody. Wow. And I believe I was sitting down on this, whatever it was, but the vision was kind of blurry, but I still want to have regression so I can find out the whole story. But there was one, it was like human, the best way I could, humanish, humanish looking. The skin tone was humanish looking. And then there was some short ones around them. And I almost want to say that they were in a lab coat, but I'm not positive. Not positive on that. But I think
I've encountered some wearing lab coats, yes.
I'm not positive, but it seemed that the humanish looking one is the one that I was talking to. And then there was the other ones that were just there. But I mean, we're talking only a few seconds that I remember. But I mean, that's all it takes. You can wrap a whole contact experience up into a thought. I mean, people don't understand that it's a whole nother level of communication.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I've always
some
thought
of those single thoughts, it can take months to unpack everything that was put into it.
The thing that I've been the contact, I talk about it, but the thing that like I'm real passionate about lately, and I don't talk to too many people about it because I don't know what level of security stuff I'm tapping into, but it's the dreams, it's the dream stuff, and it's these facilities, and they're it's a lot of facilities. And I've done jail time, I've been, so I know what facilities look like, because I've been to them on this plane. I've been to them, but these places are nothing like here. Very similar, but it's not here. And I've always had dream connections, but once I got sober, quit drinking and everything, the abilities just went through the roof. And that's when the memories, it's not even a memory. It's like you have REM sleep, which takes 4 hours to reach. But then what I'm experiencing, I can do in as little as 20 minutes. I think that's my record time. My record time was like 20 minutes. And you're swapping bodies with yourself. So just like I'm talking to you right now, okay, I'll lay down, meditate for a few minutes. It's like something that you tap into. It's I don't think everybody has the ability to do it, but I am all of a sudden somewhere else, just like you and me are talking. I have control over what I'm doing. I remember the people. Oftentimes I'll come back crying because I had to leave, like the person that I was with over there. Some of them I had a really strong bond with, and I'd wake up crying because I didn't want to come back here.
Yeah.
And, but Sway over the Sway channel, I found him in a contactee group, and we became good friends. And he's really good people, man. He's supported me through a lot of stuff and helped me out with a lot of stuff. A lot of the content I put up, he helps with some of that.
I'll put it this way. I normally have problems with Christians because they think that I need to find Jesus. They think that I'm being attacked by demons, and they are so aggressive. And Sway is one of the few that he's a minister. He's an ordained reverend, and he's one of the few that I can actually talk to without feeling like he's going to pounce. He has never once pounced on me. And so that's like,
Yeah, yeah, he's not like that. He's definitely different. I don't know anybody that's like him, but you can talk to him about anything.
I've had Reverend Ed Broderick on my show, and he will slide Jesus in.
Yeah.
But Sway doesn't do that. Sway is like, okay, we're just talking like people. So.
Well, he got into that position because his dad was one.
Okay.
His dad was a minister, and that's how he ended up getting into that field. But I think, he had his contact and his awakening and stuff. I don't know the exact timeline, but yeah, I don't know
him about being on and talking about it if he wants to.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to do that. So I was talking to him, and I haven't been doing this long. I was a very quiet person. I didn't put my business out there. Everything I did was very secluded and quiet. So I've only been doing this a few years. So it was 2007 that I had my contact, and it wasn't 7 more years went by. And I ended up, I ended up having twins. One of them didn't make it, but I had twins, which I found bizarre because.
Sorry about your loss.
I don't look at it in a bad way. I believe that she just moved on to something else. I don't think that she's gone. I think everything happens for a reason. I know she's still alive, just not on this plane, Okay. But that was 6 months.
I don't believe the dead are dead, as in non-existent. I know they exist. They're just not here. And it's I have walked over too many ghosts to know better, to think that they're simply not in a physical body anymore.
my personal thoughts on that, that's something that's still something I'm trying to find, and that's something I'm really into, is trying to figure all that out. And I think that it depends on what level so I guess you could call it a soul, what level you're evolved to. And I think some people don't transition, and sometimes will get stuck. And I wonder if that's what ghosts are, or is it just energy left over? You can stamp energy. I saw a thing where saying that your energy actually can stay in one spot for 30 minutes or something like that, depending on how strong it is. You can leave your imprint. I could sit here and get up, and my energy print will still be here. So I wonder if some of these sightings was the energy just so that strong. I know really bad events, murders and civil. I know I lived over there by Manassas Battlefield, which is a big one. Tons of energy there, and there's things that happen to me there I can't explain. I had missing time. We had a path that went through the battlefield where people walked their dogs. There was a creek that ran through there, and I had missing time there. That was my first missing time, and that was back in elementary school. And I've had friends go missing with me, but it was always close people that I had a strong energy connection to. And they went missing with me. I can think of 3 people off the top of my head that can vouch for me and say, yeah, we went missing. So that, I think
there are a lot of things going on. And I think anyone who tries to just put a label on it is likely to find themselves humiliated, as in, this isn't the only thing doing this.
Yep.
I've had folks tell me all kinds of things, and I think in most cases it's this and that rather than this or that. And I think we need to keep our minds a little bit more open, that what's happening with one individual sighting might be this or that, but the whole category is and.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I have walked family members over because they didn't realize they were dead. Okay. My great grandmother fell into a coma and died. And she visited me one night, and she had me to her house, and my great grandfather was there with her, and there were these people that wanted her to sell her property and blah, 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 blah. The short story was my great grandfather knew he had died. My great grandmother didn't. And he had never told her. And so I'm like, you know, Grandma, you're not here in a body anymore. And I took both of them across, you know, into the land of the dead. And they wanted me to stay with them. This was what, 2 years ago, something like this. So she had been dead since 1980. And all this time she had no clue. But she and I had had a very powerful connection. And so she came to me, and I'm like, you know, you're no longer in a body. You want to go move on to the next place? You know, I mean, I'm not going to make you, but, you know, it would be in your interests. And she looks over at Bill, my great grandfather, and says, well, how long have you known? And he says, I've known the whole time. I've just been waiting for you. You know?
Wow.
So, yes, guys, I was in a black op called DEATHCOM, as in communications with the dead. So I have a unit number. So, yes, but yes, sometimes it is that you had such a traumatic thing happen that part of your energy has split off and stays behind. Sometimes it's that the person doesn't realize they're dead. Sometimes it's that the collective trauma kind of coalesced into an energy of its own, like at battle sites, like at places where great disasters happened. It's and, not or.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that story, because recently my best friend, this is pretty wild. My best friend, like my best friend, you know, he's been there for everything. You know, he had absolutely nothing and would still look out for me. And he's been there through everything. When we were kids, I knew things when I was a kid that are taking place now, which is, you know, time is weird.
Yeah, time is weird.
Back then, we were playing and doing things. We were just like around 13 years old. And I had the thought in my head that we were going to be family. And I was in Virginia. My mom was from Maryland, and my sister lived with my mom in Maryland, and I lived with my dad and that side of the family in Virginia. So there's no way that paths would have crossed with my sister and anybody I knew. But I knew that we were going to be family. I had that thought, but then I would talk to myself. I'm like, well, how the hell would that even happen? And here we are. They're getting ready to get married. My sister is now with him, and she's actually having contractions now, I believe. And they're getting ready to have a baby. They're getting ready to have a baby. They're getting married. But they started talking through the internet. But he's 100% Italian, so he came to me first and asked for my permission first. I wanted them to be happy. They were both looking for the same thing. So I said,
that is like the utmost honor
yeah,
that he did that. Yes, that's respect.
yeah, that's old school stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's very old school stuff. My first husband asked my father for permission.
yeah, he did that too. Yeah, he did. He talked to my dad also. He talked to me first, and then once I gave him the go ahead, then he talked to him. But he was from up in Philly. They're down Tennessee area now. He had lost his sister to an overdose, and then his younger brother, my friend, he used to do music. He got out of the music business because of how dark it is. I hear people talking about conspiracy stuff. I know somebody personally, and he was starting to get famous up there in Philadelphia, and he got invited. He didn't know any conspiracy stuff at the time, and he got invited to a Mason lodge, and he'd actually gotten proof of that. I can't share it, but I have seen the proof. And
when I first went public, I was shocked by how many musicians there were in the disclosure movement. But it turns out that they are contacted more than some of the rest of us are. But
you broke up when you said that.
I had a couple of musician friends from Michigan and Toronto who told me about that radio operates like the music industry. And they told me what to get in writing so that I would own a catalog, because that's how so many musicians are enslaved, is because they don't own their own work. So, but yeah, I'm really grateful to those particular men. There were 3 of them that each of them took me aside separately and said, you need to do this, 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 and this. And every one of them told me the same things to do. So I'm like, okay, cool. They're agreeing and they've got my back. And for me, that was like incredible to be honored by these professionals.
Yeah.
So I've passed that information on to the people that I work with. And so it's paying it forward.
Yeah, that's what I try to do with, I don't try, I do that. Anything that I get or I'm given, I always make sure that I pay it forward. Even if it's just a little bit, or stopping and talking to the guy on the corner that nobody talks to, just walks past. Those are people too.
Yeah, they are.
So, one of my best friends up here, he's homeless, but he plays guitar for a living. He plays on the corner, and like he chooses to let me shut this window. he chooses to live like that, and he's got a bank account, he's got money, he's got his phone, but he's awake. He's awake. I go up there and talk to him all the time. Usually the wife has to pull me back because I'll sit up there and talk to him for hours about stuff. But yeah, pay it forward. Yeah. Yeah. I can't knowing what I know now, I can't talk to like regular people. It's just I can't. It's like what am I?
I go out we live in an apartment complex, and I go out and everybody shuts their doors.
Oh yeah, I'm the crazy person.
Yeah. I'm not sure if they consider me just crazy or if they consider me dangerous crazy, but they know
probably both.
They know I have a radio show, and they're relatively quiet while I'm on air, and they're pretty they're pretty cool about that.
I'm an apartment too. I'm the only white person here, and I have the window cracked. I'm not supposed to smoke, but I have the window cracked while I'm smoking, and I know people can hear me. You know, I know people can hear me, but I don't know. I don't give a shit. But the thing we always get off on a string, and I got to try to remember what we were talking about. But
we were talking about the ship and the ETs.
Well, yeah, before I finish that, the thing you said about your grandmother, when I was talking about my friend there, where I was getting at with that was he did music, and his brother was trying to follow in his footsteps. And my friend, he had a brief opiate addiction, and his brother didn't use drugs. He'd barely drink. So I don't know how he ended up getting a habit, but he ended up catching a habit, and he overdosed last year, I think. Well, a few months ago, last year. It wasn't long ago. And my sister she woke up a few Thanksgivings ago. My aunt was getting ready to die of cancer, and then that side of my family, which I believe are connected to the elites. I haven't been able to prove it yet, but there's a lot of evidence pointing towards it. And I
can help you with family tree.
Yeah.
If you know your grandparents' names and where they were born and what year, I can help you set up your family tree.
Well, yeah, my sister just recently found out where our grandmother was from in Italy. Like, they came over on the boat, so it was really hard getting that information, but she literally just got that information a few days ago. But they were, and then my grandfather was Scotch Irish, and I believe his family was off the boat. But
there's an awful lot of Italians that married Irish in America.
Yeah, on that side, Irish and Italian on that side.
There's a lot of those.
So it's kind of wild because I haven't had any boys. My sister had gotten a message saying that because of all the bad shit on my dad's side, that's the side that my grandfather was in the service, and all of his brothers, I can speak about it now because they're all, they're not alive anymore, but all of his brothers were Masons. 3 of them, I think it was 3 or 4 of them. He had like 3 or 4 brothers. Let me think.
The Masons now are not like the Masons used to be.
Yeah, we're talking.
I had family in the Masons, and they were generally pretty good people. It's when OTO infiltrated the Masons that they got to be so harsh.
Yeah, they would be in their like they would be in their 90s today, I think.
Yeah, but
90s, maybe
I want
100.
I want you to understand that there was a time that the Masons were not bad.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there are still some Masons that are not bad.
Well,
So
my grandfather, I don't try to talk bad about him because my grandfather my grandfather, his father left and had and had like a second family, and he left them my great grandmother with like 5 or 6 kids.
wow.
And my grandfather didn't even have shoes, and he said that the Masons helped his family out,
Yeah.
helped them out when they didn't have anything.
Yeah.
So, but there's still a lot of weird stuff, like I'm talking.
Yeah.
Like I got a hold of, I don't know what she would be considered. My dad, I got a hold of my dad's cousin. I was named after my great uncle. I was named after him. So the original Miles, his daughter contacted me on Messenger, and she's like, "Oh, this is so weird talking to you, you know." The energy was really high when I spoke with her, and she told me that there was times when she was in the house and there was meetings going on, and her dad told her to like be quiet but keep her ears open, or some she said a lot of quiet stuff went on in the house that she didn't, I didn't go deep into it because I don't know how awake she is. So I didn't want to, I just let her talk. I didn't like really push any questions. But that side of my family, South Carolina in Masons, military. And then my mom's side, they were like die-hard Catholics, went to church every day. My grandmother, my nana, she was a sweetheart. I would be doing awful, and then she would always tell me how proud she was. But what's weird is they were good people. They always brought the family together for the holidays, that side of the family. But they were always about not my grandparents, but their kids. They were all about money, and you just got this weird vibe every time I was around them. And then as the years went on, it just seemed like they got darker and darker and darker. And now, like, they don't get together. After my grandparents died, everything died with them. But these people remind me of the people that we talk about with the elites and all the ritual weird stuff. I went to my aunt's funeral. She died of cancer not too long ago, and my sister was having contact with her after she died. But at her funeral, her son, he's gay, and then he's into all this weird stuff. And the wine that was at the funeral was like these weird bottles of wine that had like weird religious stuff on it. I didn't think of it at the time. This is back when I had relapsed drinking briefly. So I had a few glasses of wine when I was there. But when I got home, me and the wife got into it really bad. And then she blacked out. She went unconscious. I mean, it was scary, man. And like really weird, negative stuff happened. And it was right when we came home from the funeral. But where I live, it used to be the land the mob ran it in the 60s. Okay. They used to be motels. The mob ran it in the 60s, 70s and 80s. They were black projects. And before all of that, it was a parole. It was a Civil War prison trading camp. And before that, the Native Americans were here. So,
The
I
natives
mean, the
wouldn't
energy
have
here,
done all that.
no, but I'm just saying that the energy, there's so many different things. And,
Yeah.
you know, the spirits that are here, I don't have any problem with them, but a lot of people can't come over here and they get whacked out, or they can't handle the energy. But I go out there in the back, and there was girls that were contacting me, and I was told that the gravel path here in the back used to be a dumping ground for bodies. And I had contact with 3 girls that were contacting me. And I ended up reaching out to some people, and I had a team of people working on this. And apparently they're buried back there. And back there, it's like in Maryland and DC, it's very swampy.
Yeah.
It's very swampy. So there's like an offshoot of a creek, but it's swamp. So if you were to throw a body back there, it would just sink into the mud and nobody would ever see it. But I found out that 3 of them are buried back there. And I started working with a medium, and then another guy that works with a pendulum and or whatever. And we mapped out where they were at. And I went back there in the woods right before COVID looking for them. And I took the kid with me one time. And when we got home, 2 cops came to my door. And they were like, oh, what were you doing back there? And I had my story down in case this happened. And I said, I'm doing history research, which is actually what I was doing.
Yeah.
I said, I'm doing history. I said, I'm doing history research. And I said, and I'm taking my kid, to play in the woods. I said, when I was a kid, I said, we played in the woods and went to the creek. I said, didn't you do that? And it was two black cops. And the younger black guy goes, what were you doing back there with your kid? And I said, and I told him, and then he goes, don't go back there anymore. I said, well, why not? He goes, just don't go back there anymore. And it was like, I was like, okay, you know something you're not, something. Like, it was that kind of vibe I got from him. Like, he was like, just don't go back there.
Like, there's something there that you really don't want to know about.
Yeah, I think, and the apartment manager, a manager we had a while back, she's the one that told me a lot of this information. And from what I understand, that some of the cops know about the stuff that took place, and the research that we ended up coming across that these mediums and people I was working with came across this serial killer, Samuel Little, and he died recently in prison. And he admitted to all these killings. I mean, like, we're talking, he's one of the biggest mass serial killers, mass murderers in history, but he wasn't really advertised that much. And he did stuff from Florida all the way up to here, up in Baltimore. And he killed so many people that he couldn't remember them all. So when he agreed to start working with authorities, and different people from different states would come to him and show them, and he would remember faces and pictures. Mm-hmm. So he was helping different states try to find people. So I was told that some of these girls back here were victims of his. And Samuel Little, I did a lot of research on him. He preyed on prostitutes, they were like at motels, drug addicts, people that really wouldn't, they'd be missed, but they wouldn't be,
Yeah, the ones that the police refer to as no humans involved, which is really cold-blooded because we're all humans.
Yeah. So the research I was doing, I was told that they're victims, and I did research. Samuel Little did admit to a body in Laurel, Maryland, which is not far. It's like maybe 15, like about 20 minutes maybe from here. And then I was trying to trace his timeline and see if he was up here at the time that I looked at these girls that I believed who it was. I found missing pictures of them, and we verified them through this one guy who had the guy that talked to him through the pendulum was a relative that died way before he was born. And so he got a lot of answers through him. But I traced Little all the way up here to the time period because he had an arrest record too. So that helped the timeline a little bit easier. And I believe that I found some of the girls, and that Samuel Little, I wish we could do screen share. I'd pull a picture up of him.
Well,
he ended up.
You can add that when you put it on Rumble, but for my audience on Gurn, it's radio, so they can't see it anyway. So
Okay.
We've got about 5 more minutes.
Okay. So
don't forget to share your Rumble.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Check me out on Rumble, Miles Moonbases. We were on YouTube, and of course they took us down completely. They deleted over 200 videos. They took us down, but we are on Rumble, and we are actually doing better than we were on YouTube. So, over there, I'm speaking freely. I'm not censored, and I'm, putting it all out there with no filter. And, that's thanks to Penny Bradley. She's been sponsoring us over there on Rumble. So this will be broadcasted over there on Miles Moonbases, as well as Penny, Nacht Waffen Pilot on YouTube.
Yeah. And I get my ISP company is sending a guy out in the morning. So hopefully my internet will be fixed, and I'll be able to upload everything to both YouTube and Rumble. I still have a large following on YouTube, so.
Yeah, but they shadow ban you, because I remember your numbers were way higher a few years ago. They definitely shadow ban your numbers, because I know people that follow you, and the numbers aren't accurate on there.
Yeah, the numbers aren't accurate. So I know that when I've had some interviews done with other people that I will get over 50,000 views, but on my channel, they're only telling me 1,000. So I've had some videos that they've told me have done 3,000, but I'm not in this so much for the numbers as for the right people hearing it. The people who need.
But it'd be nice to know the actual numbers,
Well, I'm not monetized on YouTube because, for starters, they didn't like my music. I mean, come on. Come on. When a rock star writes you a song, you play it. So
that song is awesome. That intro is awesome.
Yeah. So any last words you want to say before we go off today?
Yeah. That's the thing with CERN the other day. I was getting phone calls left and right, and so host Sway said that it's possible. I had a friend, and her phone was calling every number on her contact list all day.
Wow.
All day. And Sway said maybe you know, with the time dial, what they're doing with time, maybe it was playing out every scenario if she were to have called those people. But she
That's
wasn't the only person to report from. Another person that I'm friends with, it kept called me like 5 times. So there was like weird stuff going on with the electronics when that CERN. I didn't think anything was going to happen, and then a lot of stuff happened.
there was a lot of little stuff that happened, and I'm just sort of sitting here wanting to sleep all the time.
Yeah, I can never get enough sleep.
So
yeah, thanks for having me on. We'll definitely have to do it again. I'd like to get more into the other timeline and the facilities. You know, there's not too many people that I can talk to that can verify some of the, like, I have memory of all the places that I've seen and visited. Some of them my the back of my mind, my higher self tells me not to speak about some of them, but some of them I can speak about.
okay,
So
we'll work on scheduling that. So
yeah,
thank you
definitely
for
get
coming,
together.
and thank you,
Thank
audience, for listening. And this will be aired on the 9th of July.